Okay, so my name is Mike Martinson, and I'm a deacon in the Catholic Church, and I very much thank you for the opportunity of being able to record this video for you. I'm going to break the video down into two sections, kind of talk about the diaconate and hopefully answer some of those questions, and then I will work towards, in the second video, answering some of the other questions. One of the reasons I'm going to do that is because here pretty soon, the kids are going to come back from school and it's going to get very loud and chaotic here. I have 7 kids and it doesn't take long for it to get loud and chaotic in here. So, I thank you very much for allowing me to do this. I'm sorry that it took me so long to do this or to get it uploaded anyway. March was a crazy month. It didn't feel like it was ever going to end. There was all kinds of stuff going on, and then April was just kind of flowing by. And so here we sit on May 1st, which is the Feast of St. Joseph the Worker. And I'm ready to do this. So hopefully it all works out well and that I haven't been too late on it. That was my other concern with finals and things coming up. The questions I have written over here, so you'll periodically see me looking this way. I want to make sure that I answer the questions and can get them hopefully answered to the way that is satisfactory for you that asked. So a little background, just to give you kind of an idea of where I come from as far as the diaconate goes. In late 2006, it was December 2006, the Catholic newspaper here in the Diocese of Cheyenne published a story about a deacon formation program that was going to be within the diocese. This program was going to be very beneficial to the people in the diocese, to the men who wanted to, or who were discerning a call to the diaconate, because prior to that, you had to go to Denver every other weekend or so in order to discern that call and be formally invested in that. And that was almost impossible for pretty much every man to do. So what this program was going to do was start it here in Wyoming, give you the opportunity to go to Casper, which is kind of a centrally located city, once a month, and spend the weekend in Casper. And then you were going to do that for the 5 years or whatever the program took, and that was how it was going to play out. So when I read that article, I started thinking, well, I should probably look into it, because I had thought about the diaconate before. Several years before this, I had thought about the diaconate. Prior to that, when I went to college after high school, I was in the seminary discerning a call to the priesthood. I discerned that call was not for me. I got married, I had children, and then the diaconate program came up. So in early 2007, it was February 3rd of 2007, we all met in Casper for the first time, and there was a lot of us. There was 40 some of us that showed up that day. And for the next year, we met together once a month on a Saturday, and we talked about discernment. What does it mean to discern the call? What does the diaconate mean? What is it going to take to be involved in this program, and so on and so forth. All kinds of questions that were talked about, discussed, and answered during that year of what they call aspirancy. At the end of that year, if you believe that you have been called to continue to go forward, then you start what we call the formal process of the formation, and that begins the classwork, essentially. You have your various teachers that came through St. Meinrad in Indiana, all kinds of different teachers. Every month we had a different teacher, different class, and so it kept us busy. And that went from February of 2008 all the way until the spring of 2012, where the program itself was ended because the course was completed. We had to do a 5-day retreat where we did it in Colorado. And then in May of 2012, everybody in my class except for me was ordained to the diaconate. I had to wait until August because I was, at the time of ordination in May, was only 33 years old. The Conference of Catholic Bishops in the United States requires a man to be 35 years old to be ordained to the permanent diaconate. However, he can dispense by 1 year, so you can be 34. So in May of 2012, I was 33. On August 15th, I turned 34, and then the following week, on August 21st of 2012, I was ordained a deacon for the Diocese of Cheyenne in Cheyenne at the cathedral. So that's a little about how I got here. and the process that it took. There's the whole long process, many years of discernment, many years of formation, many years of classwork is what it took to get me here. It was very, very good. I enjoyed every minute of it. I enjoyed meeting those guys every week. Or every month. I miss seeing them as frequently. We don't see each other near as frequently. The Diocese of Cheyenne covers the whole state of Wyoming and Yellowstone National Park. It was a very large diocese. And a lot of the guys were from various areas within the diocese. And so it's been difficult at times to get together. But we have an annual retreat. We have a couple institutes each year where we meet at. And then there's other diocesan events that come up where we do have time to spend together and see each other a little bit. So I'll just start answering some of these questions as best I can, and I hope that I get them right. So the first question is, what would you say is the hardest part of being a deacon? For me, I don't have a lot of hard things about being a deacon, but I think the biggest thing would be balance. One of the things that can sometimes happen is deacons primarily have a job in what we call the secular world, in the world outside of the church. There aren't as many deacons who are paid by the church to work with the church. So we all have secular jobs, 40-hour-a-week jobs. In my case, I work at the Wyoming Boys School, and that's my secular job. That's my 40-hour-a-week job. And then I come home and I have my family, 7 children, my wife, the household duties, whatever goes on with everything else, and then other duties that kind of come into it. I have, I'm the president of the Washakie County Ministerial Association, which means I run those meetings. We do certain events throughout the year together. So there are some things that come up, but the biggest thing would be balance, being able to balance that. But when I was in college at Conception Seminary College in Missouri, I was trained by the Benedictines, and the Benedictines have a set structure throughout the day of prayer and work. And so they structure their day that way, and they have set times for prayer, they have set times for work. And so I learned how they work through that rhythm of life when I was down there, and that benefited me a lot during formation itself, because I was able to balance the home life with my work life, with my study life, and all the things that entailed as I went through formation. And it continues to help me out now. Set prayer times, set work times, and it's just that kind of rhythm of life that works very well. So the balance is the trickiest part for me. And again, sometimes a year it gets really, really busy for me as a deacon, and sometimes it does not. So it just kind of depends on what's going on as to how much, I'm required to do. And then that can be tricky, but as long as I continue to balance it out, I'm okay. So I don't really have any real difficult parts about being a deacon. I really like working with people. I really like talking to people and helping people and those kinds of things. So I don't have, really any difficulty other than keeping that balance at times. So the next question, are there days when you regret choosing the path, and then why or why not? The answer to that question is no, I don't regret choosing that path. And the reason is very simple. I believe that when we are in life searching for what it is that we want to do, if we ask God, not so much what do I want to do, but God, what do you want me to do with my life? Where do you want me to follow you? How do you want me to follow you? Then we're going to find great happiness in what we do, great joy in what we do. So as long as we're following the will of God, I don't think we're ever going to be disappointed. There's going to be difficult days. There's going to be days that are just trying your patience, that are trying emotionally, everything else, just like there is in anything in life. But as long as you keep Jesus at the center and you're following God's will, then you're gonna find great peace and joy in that. As I discerned this process, there was a lot of times where I thought, no, this isn't something I can do. The diaconate is not going to happen for me. And through other people, through prayer, through the studies and everything else that went on, I ultimately came to the conclusion that, yes, God is calling me to the diaconate, and that's what I need to be doing. So that's one thing I would encourage any of you, while I'm thinking of it, to do in your life. As you are in your college years and you're studying and you're learning different things about who you are, I would say really seek God's will in your life. Ask God, what do you want me to do for you in my life? How do you want me to serve you? And if you do that, I think you're going to find yourself being very joyful in life, no matter what that is. Perhaps you're called to, serve the poor in some way. Perhaps you're called to be a pastor or a priest, depending on your religious traditions. Maybe a religious monk or a nun. Maybe you're called to be doctors and lawyers. Who knows? But if you ask God, what is your call for me? What is it you want me to do with my life? Then you're going to find great peace and great hope and joy and all of that. And that's what I have found in the course of my life, that as long as I keep my focus on Jesus, as long as I keep centered there, then I continue to hold that joy, and I realize kind of what my role is in that. Much like St. Peter, when he asked Jesus to teach him how to walk on the water, and he stepped onto the water and he became scared because he took his focus off of Jesus. He became scared and he began to sink. Same thing happens to us if we take our focus off of Jesus and what he wants for us in our life. So always keep him at the center, and then seek his will for you, and you're going to find great joy and great peace in what you do. And that's what I find. Even in the difficult days, even in those times of the year where it's very, very busy and I've got 500 things to do on any given day, to balance that out, I find great joy in what I do. So no, the short answer is no, I don't feel at all regret for what I've chosen or the path that I've gone down. One of the questions then is, what responsibilities do I have as a deacon? And so there's kind of two parts in that question. The first part is, as far as responsibilities go, some of the things that I do, I teach RCIA, which is what we call the Rite of Christian Initiation for adults. That's for people who want to come into the church. Adult faith formation is an area of mine that we're trying to develop something that's going to work for people. That's a responsibility I have. Beyond that, outside of the church, I'm the president of the Ministerial Association, as I've mentioned. We have some different projects and things that we do a couple of times a year, and that's one of the responsibilities. As far as what I do as a deacon, beyond that, what we call faculties are what I have the ability to do within the church. So, for example, at a Mass, I would preach the gospel. The deacon will preach the gospel if there's a deacon present. I can preach at Mass, and I do that once a month. I can preside at funerals, and I can witness marriages, and I can baptize infants. And those are the things that I have faculties to do. I cannot hear confessions. I cannot say Mass. I cannot anoint people with last rites, the anointing of the sick. I can't baptize adults. I can't confirm people. Those are the responsibilities of the faculties of a priest. So my faculties are somewhat different in that from a priest, but that's what I can do. As a deacon, one of the responsibilities, one of the focuses of our order is that we are going to be one of service and of charity. And so I try to find ways in order to work with that service, charity. Again, working with the Ministerial Association helps me with some of that. Visiting people who are in the nursing home, homebound, things like that would be beneficial in that area, and I get to that when I can. So things like that are all things that I would do as a deacon that helps bridge the gap between me or the laity and the priesthood. So a priest's faculties, as I've mentioned, are different. They have the priest can do all of the sacraments except for ordain. They can't do holy orders. They can't ordain anybody. It takes a bishop to do that. But so my role is different. And as a deacon, we're called primarily to service. And it comes from the Acts of the Apostles. And that's where that comes from. And so it's different from a priest. I'm also not required to be celibate in the same sense as the priest. I am currently married, as I've mentioned. And the difference is that if my wife should pass away, I cannot get remarried. So those are things that we all have to take into consideration along the path towards the diaconate as well. was keeping in mind that there is that possibility that could happen, and that having young children and things like that is always a concern. But so there are some differences there, and that takes me into the kind of question as far as, do I feel limited in my role as a deacon? And the answer is no. I think it's important to kind of know that everybody plays a part in this. Within the church, within society, within the world, everybody plays a part, right? We're all one body, but we're many parts. And I have a certain role to fulfill, and the priest has a certain role to fulfill, and the laity have certain roles to fulfill. And as long as we understand that our roles, we understand what distinguishes us from each other, I think we can easily keep in mind what our responsibility is within the church itself. We don't, I don't want to pretend to be a priest. I don't want the laity to pretend to be priests. But we are all called to holiness, and we all have to work together in this, what we call the church militant, which is those of us on earth who are fighting the battle every day. And so we all work together to achieve salvation is essentially what we're doing, but we all have a particular role. So I don't feel limited in that. I obviously knew what I was doing. I knew what I was getting into. I knew what it meant to be a deacon. I knew what that entailed. I knew what that didn't entail. And so there was no concern there as far as, what to expect later on. Some people asked, well, can we be ordained priests later on? So on and so forth. And the short answer to that is no. Even though it's possible, at certain stages, for example, if you were a widower or something like that, the permanent diaconate is a separate order, and it's always been known to be a separate order, and that's what the church really wants to keep it, as that separate order. So for someone to go into the permanent diaconate with the idea that later on I might be a priest would be a wrong mindset to have. It'd be wrong to think that way. I wasn't called to the priesthood, I was called to the diaconate. And that's where we really have to differentiate that and be able to understand that this is my role. And so, no, I don't feel limited in it. I know what my role is, and I know how to fulfill it. And I know that within that role, within what I do, that is helping to achieve the salvation of souls, helping to further people's lives, to better people's lives, to work towards that. And so for me, that understanding is the right understanding, and it's very beneficial for me to understand that. But no, I don't feel limited. I know exactly what my responsibilities are, and and I enjoy it. I enjoy every moment of being a deacon. Honestly, it's been a gift to me and a humbling experience at different times, but I really do enjoy it. I really do like, I'm very thankful that God called me to the diaconate, even though I often wonder why. Obviously I've always been a part of the church, and since about the age of 15, I've really been focused on study within the church and things of that nature, and I've always felt great consolation within the church, great comfort within the church. But at the same time, it kind of makes you wonder, why am I the one that was chosen, right? Why was I chosen to do this? And that was a battle during formation at times too. Is it me that is sitting here saying, I want to be a deacon, so I'm going to go through formation and be a deacon? Or is it God actually calling me to be a deacon, right? And there's a distinction there. And that's something that at different times we had to address. We had to think about and make complete assurances that it was us that was being called, not me just saying, well, I've been doing this in the church for so long, and I'm a man, and I might as well as be ordained myself. The call comes from God, and then God takes over after that. And so, but I am completely humbled and thankful that I am a deacon. I enjoy every minute of it. Good times, bad times, every minute of it. So the last question here that's on the diaconate is, do you feel that being a deacon creates a good balance between a path of faith in the world while also having a life outside of the faith as well? And I think that's an interesting question. One that to me kind of meant a couple different things, and I wasn't exactly sure what the person who asked the question was asking. Although I think what they were asking was within that idea of me being a deacon and also having a secular life where I'm married with a family, and I'm thinking that that's the context in which they were asking the question. And so I do believe that that's a good path of faith. Being able to have that in both worlds, I think, is good. The priesthood, primarily, even though the priest is very active within the community, they have a different view on things. They have a different lifestyle than those of us who live in the world and work in the world, and it's different. And so it is good. I think it's good for the world to be able to see that. I think it's very beneficial for me to be able to bring things to Father Ray that maybe he did not know were going on in the community, different concerns. And although this is a small community, and everybody pretty much knows what's going on, Father Ray always is in tune to what's happening in the city. But at the same time, there are things that go on sometimes he's not aware of, and it's good to be able to bring that balance of life between the church and the world, and I very good balance. And that's one of the roles of the deacon, is to be that bridge between the laity, that is the world, and the priest. And so, we discuss various things at different times. We meet at least once a week. We see each other, usually multiple times throughout the week. Then we have one formal meeting every month where we get together and discuss different things. But we always have at least, we see each other multiple times throughout the week unless one of us is out of town for some reason. But the other way that I kind of took this question, and I don't think this is how you meant it, but I thought I would address it if that's how you meant it. I'm pretty sure I've answered the question the way that you intended it. But one of the things that sometimes happens within people's lives is we tend to compartmentalize our lives. So I'm a Catholic, from 8:30 to 9:30 on Sunday morning. The rest of the time is my time. Or I'm a Catholic, until 8 o'clock in the morning, and then I'm not a Catholic until 5 o'clock at night, and then I become Catholic again. Because I don't want to be Catholic in my job, and I don't want to be Catholic, that's my time. We don't want to compartmentalize our life ever like that. We want to make sure that we understand that there is no clock in, clock out. If we're Christians, if we're Catholics, as a deacon, I'm a deacon all the time. 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. I'm a deacon all the time. That doesn't go away because I clock in at work and all of a sudden I work in this government job that wants to maintain some kind of separation of church and state. I'm still a deacon, and although my role might be different there than it is in the church, right? I don't, there's no liturgical celebration at the boys' school, but I'm still a deacon, and I have to act like a deacon, and I have to remember that people are going to see me as a deacon, and they're going to know that. And the people I work with know that. Not all the kids know that, but sometimes they find that out. But all the people I work with know that. And so you have to be able to act a certain way and keep in mind that if you do act out of line on that, people, are going to know. Hey, did you hear how that deacon acted? Did you see what that deacon did? Did you see how that deacon treated me? Or did you see how he treated that kid? Always got to keep that in mind, and so we don't want to ever compartmentalize our life. We're a Christian all the time, whether we're in whether we're out with friends having a couple beers, or whether we are at work, or whether we are at church, whether we're in the mountains, whether we're at the beach, whether we're in the city, whether we're on the road. It doesn't matter. Everything we do should shine forth that light of Christ, and that's something we have to keep in mind. I don't think that that's what you meant. I think what you meant was that balance between faith and society and kind of being that bridge. And I hope I answered that to your satisfaction. Because yes, and in fact, there's one part in the Catholic Mass where there's a part where the collection is taken up, and then they bring the collection basket up along with the bread and the wine that are going to be used at the altar. And the person who generally receives that is going to be the deacon, and he does that as that role, as it's kind of symbolic for the bridge between the laity and the priests, right? So the deacon is the one that takes the gifts from the people and brings them to the priest. And so it's kind of symbolic in that same sense of the deacon being that bridge between the two. And I enjoy it when I go into town and people see me at the grocery stores and they say, "Hi, Deacon Mike, how are you?" And we talk about things and I can ask them different questions or whatever. I'm not very good at starting conversations. Anybody who really is around me much would know that I'm not very good at starting conversations. I like to listen to people's conversations, not very good at starting them. However, once I'm asked, or getting involved in those conversations, I can talk for a long time. But anyway, it's neat to be able to see that and to see people's lives and to see how people's things are changing for people. I know a lot more about people's lives now than I did before I was a deacon. Perhaps it's just because I pay attention more. Perhaps because they let me know more. But either way, I do tend to know more now about different people's lives, and it's good to be able to see them grow. And so, those are good aspects of that balance between the two. So I hope that I've answered those questions on the diaconate. I'm going to go ahead and end this part of the video and hopefully be able to upload it. I did this before and I couldn't get it to upload. So hopefully I can do that, get this to upload, and then I will work on the second part of the questions as soon as I can and get those parts up. But I think that sufficiently explains my kind of role as a deacon, and I hope it answers those questions. And then I've got several other questions that I need to answer that I hope to address in the second video. If I can get this video to work, then the second video will come pretty soon. If not, I don't know. I'm not very technologically savvy, so I may just end up, who knows what I'll do if I can't get this to work. But hopefully it works. Again, thank you for the opportunity. I hope that it's been pleasant for you, and I hope that it's answered some of your questions. As always, if there's any other questions or concerns, you can get a hold of me either through Ellie or somehow get a hold of me. But yeah, I really enjoy this, and thank you for that opportunity. And hopefully it'll upload, and then I'll be back with the second part.